All right, today we are diving headfirst into one of the Bible's most intense chapters, Romans 9. This one, wow, it brings up some heavy questions, right? Stuff like fairness, free will, God's power. But here's the thing you have to get right from the start. All this deep theology, it kicks off with just a man's broken heart.
So let's just sit with the raw emotion here for a second. This isn't some academic paper. Paul is writing as a man whose heart is just aching. The pain he feels for his own people, the Israelites, is so deep, he says something that should stop you in your tracks. He says he'd be willing to be cursed, to be cut off from Christ, if it would save them. I mean, can you even imagine? This isn't just an argument for him, this is life and death.
Okay, so to make sense of all this, we're going to walk through it just like Paul lays it out. We'll start with that heartbreak, then ask a really tough question about God's promises. After that, we'll get into the whole potter and clay thing, see a surprise twist, and finish up with what he calls the stumbling stone.
All right, first up, to really get why Paul is in so much pain, you've got to see the incredible spiritual history, the privileges that were given to Israel.
I mean, look at this list. It's like a spiritual greatest hits collection, right? Israel had it all. The adoption as God's kids, the actual visible glory of God, the covenants, the law, the temple, all of it. The promises were made to them. The patriarchs were their ancestors. And the biggest one of all, the Messiah, Jesus himself, was born a Jew. So when you see this list, this incredible spiritual inheritance, you start to feel the weight of Paul's sorrow. Why would a people with all this reject their own Messiah?
So, this tragedy, this rejection, it leads to a massive, faith-shaking question. And it's a question Paul has to answer right away because the very character of God is on the line.
And here it is, the central problem. If Israel had all this, but most of them rejected Jesus, did God's word fail? I mean, think about it. If God makes a promise, and it doesn't seem to come true for the people he promised it to, what does that say about God? Is his plan broken?
Well, Paul's answer is a resounding no. And here's how he explains it. He says, we have to understand a difference that's been there from the very beginning. There's a huge gap between your physical family tree and your spiritual reality. Just because you're a physical descendant of Israel, he argues, doesn't automatically mean you're part of the true spiritual Israel.
And to make his point, he goes all the way back to Abraham's own family. It's a perfect example. You've got Ishmael, the child of the flesh, right? Born because of human plans. But then you have Isaac, the child of the promise, who was born only because God miraculously stepped in. It's so clear, isn't it? From day one, being part of God's true family has always been about his promise, not just about your bloodline.
Okay, so now Paul really turns up the heat. He takes this idea of God's choice and uses an even more powerful and, frankly, more challenging example to explain it.
He brings up Jacob and Esau. Now get this, they're twins. Same mom, same dad, born minutes apart. But listen to this verse. Before they were born, before they had a chance to do a single good or bad thing, God had already made a choice. What does that tell you? It tells you that his purpose has nothing to do with what we do or don't do. It's not about our works. It's all about him and his call.
Okay, let's be honest. Paul knows exactly what you're thinking right now, because it's what we all think. Wait a minute, that doesn't sound fair. If God chooses like that, is he unjust?
So Paul's defense comes down to a simple word, mercy. Think about it. Mercy is, by definition, a free gift. You can't earn it. If you could, it wouldn't be mercy anymore. It'd be a paycheck, right? It'd be something you're owed. But since nobody deserves it, since nobody can demand it, how can God be unjust for giving a gift to some people that he doesn't owe to anyone?
And then he uses this famous analogy to really drive the point home. It's a picture the Old Testament prophets used all the time to talk about God's absolute authority.
The point is simple, and maybe a little harsh to our ears. The clay has no right to question the potter. I mean, who are we, the creation, to stand back and judge the Creator? This analogy really cements God's total right and authority over everything he's made.
So, let's see how this whole potter and clay idea fits into God's bigger plan. A plan for everyone, not just for Israel. So Paul talks about two kinds of vessels, and you really have to pay attention to the wording here. It's so important. On one side, you have vessels of wrath that are fitted to destruction. The language there is passive. But look at the other side. The vessels of mercy were afore-prepared unto glory. See that? It's active. God himself prepared them. That little difference in wording is huge, and it's where a lot of the big theological debates about this chapter come from.
And here is the big twist. So who are these vessels of mercy? Paul says it's not just Jews, it's Gentiles too.
people who are outsiders. And to show this isn't some crazy new idea he just made up, he pulls out a quote from the prophet Hosea. This was always the plan, to call people who weren't his people and make them his.
And he backs this up with another quote from Isaiah this time, pointing out that the Old Testament always said only a remnant of Israel, a small, faithful group, would be saved. So here's the crazy paradox, the very thing that's breaking Paul's heart, the fact that most of his people didn't believe. That doesn't mean God's word failed. It actually means it came true, because this was predicted all along.
And that brings us to the big finish, where Paul ties this whole complicated argument together.
This is where the whole thing gets flipped on its head. It's just amazing. You have the Gentiles, who weren't even looking for righteousness, and they found it. How? Just by faith. Then you have Israel, who are passionately chasing after righteousness through the law, and they completely missed it. What was the difference? One group tried to earn it through works, while the other simply received it as a gift through faith.
And what's at the center of this great reversal? It's Jesus. He's the dividing line. If you're trying to save yourself through your own efforts, your own good deeds, he's a stumbling stone you're going to trip over. But if you just let go of all that and trust him, whether you're a Jew or a Gentile, he becomes the cornerstone, the foundation for a salvation that will never, ever let you down.
So after all that, what do we do with this? How does this change us today? Well, a couple of things. One, humility. We have to get it through our heads that salvation is 100% a gift. We can't earn it. Two, compassion. We should have a heart like Paul's, a real burden for people to know this mercy. And three, trust. Just trust God's plan, even when it's confusing and we don't get all the details.
So, this chapter leaves us with one last, unavoidable question, and it's a question for you personally. If Jesus is the dividing line, what is he in your life? Is he a stumbling stone that you trip over because you're trying to do it all yourself? Or is he the cornerstone, the solid foundation that your entire life is built on?